They had an opportunity to buy it, and instead it was bought not just by a shady company. Like, why didn't they buy the mine? Mines don't have many other uses.
Yeah, who else is going to use a retired limestone mine?
It should have been scrap, basically, in terms of buying. And 100%. They should have been able to say, well, if you don't want this mine, we'll go to another mine.
That's why the world is full of abandoned mines.
Exactly. So why did another company come along and buy it and now has a leasing agreement with the United States? That makes no sense.
Let's take a walk. You think Zoolander's in trouble? Think again. What you stumbled upon goes way deeper than you could ever fathom.
And then JFK apparently was going to do a major restructuring of these organizations and cut back within these organizations.
Oh, no. I see where you're going here.
And Trump was running on doing the same thing. And if you look at how the assassination of JFK happened.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be with you today. Today, we are going to be discussing, remember when Elon was like, it turns out they've been taking all of those government files and all that government paperwork whenever somebody retired, and it needed to be stored in a lime mine.
Limestone, Pennsylvania, our own home state.
Pennsylvania, yes. And there were these pictures that looked like Indiana Jones when they're wheeling the big cart of going down
the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail.
Yeah, so I heard that and I was like, oh, wow, that's wild. I wonder how that started. And then recently, like, the thought hit me again and I was like, oh, wow, that's wild. I wonder why they were doing that. Like, why and how did all of the federal documents, like, if it was just some big warehouse, I'd be like, okay.
Right, maybe. But like having to take it down in an elevator and being able to retire only so many people per month because the elevator takes a long time and you can't put that many files down all at once. That's
that was like, wait, what? I should probably double click on this.
Yeah.
So let's double click.
Okay.
The Iron Mountain, and this is not me reading from an article. I was going through and putting some things out with Grok to try to like figure out what's going on with this.
Oh, all right. Okay. Gotcha.
The Iron Mountain underground facility in Boyers, Pennsylvania, a former limestone mine converted for storage in the 1960s. The U.S. government, particularly the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, began using it in 1970 for processing and storing retirement documents driven by the need for a secure, climate-controlled environment. Over 700 employees work 220 feet underground, manually processing around 10,000 retirement applications monthly. This manual system, unchanged since the 1970s, involves passing the files by hand, leading to delays, especially when the elevator breaks down. Despite efforts to
the one elevator.
Yeah. Since the 1980s, costing over $100 million, modernization has failed. So they spent over $100 million. And we're going to do a dive on that with a 2014 Washington Post report calling it a quote-unquote sinkhole of bureaucracy in 2015.
Okay.
Concerns about the mine's ceiling degrading were raised, but no significant changes followed.
The roof is leaking?
No, it's not. I'll show you the study.
That reminds me of 30 Rock, where
the ceiling appears to be leaking.
No, it's not. We've looked into it and it's not.
Oh my gosh.
So it's
and how do you even explain that? Like, let's say you're a local who got a job there. Someone asks you on your first date, hey, so what do you do? And you're like, well, I work at a mine. And they're like, oh, what, like coal or something? You're like, government retirement paperwork. Like what?
This is supervillain stuff. This is actual supervillain stuff.
It is.
This is not something a normal person does.
No, not
and
normal.
So as I dug, and what we're going to find out in a second here is it may be a way of government to funnel money to like Congress people and senators' families. So we'll get into how it's
pork,
happening.
Right? The term for that is pork.
No, pork is when you put in something for local spending that's meant to help you win an election. So pork would be...
Isn't that like, wouldn't that be so someone was like, well, we'll put the mine in my...
Yes, that would be pork, putting the mine in a district that is for votes.
Yeah.
That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the direct funneling of money. I'm talking about actual fraud. I'm talking about like them Look, there's a way that AOC, despite having like a 100K salary out of the congresswoman, has become a multi-millionaire in just a few years when she
She
was previously a
has?
barista. Yeah, there's a reason Bernie Sanders, despite the 100K salary, now has multiple houses and many multi-million dollars. The
Wow.
people find a way to turn this grift into millions. Or the crazy case of what's her face,
Nancy Pelosi and her stock trading.
Nancy Pelosi, yeah.
But I
And
feel like
here-
that's somewhat democratized because there has to be a disclosure for all that, and people now have I think bots that just buy whatever she buys.
That if they're buying it after her, then they're just further inflating the stock price.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know.
So that's even worse.
At least we know what she's doing. I want to know where politicians' money comes from if it's not their salaries.
Well, you wouldn't understand. Just because you understand what she's investing in, it would be hard to determine. Now, unfortunately, that law that made all that public happened after the deal that would have made a bunch of politicians money off of this happened. So we can't easily know what's going on there. But we can see from the data that something seems to be going on. So let's go deeper here.
Let's.
The practice of storing government documents in a mine traces back to the 1960s when the U.S. government sought a secure climate-controlled location for preserving critical records. The chosen site was a former mine in Boyers, Pennsylvania, approximately 45 miles north of Pittsburgh, operated by the Office of Personnel Management. This mine was originally used for limestone extraction and was converted to a storage facility, leveraging its natural underground conditions for document preservation. By 1970, OPM established its retirement operations center within the mine, marking the formal beginning of this practice for processing federal employee retirement applications. Now, the decision to use this mine was practical given its stable temperature and humidity, essential for paper record longevity. Additionally, the underground location offered natural protection against disasters and unauthorized access, enhancing security. In 1998, Iron Mountain, a global management and storage service provider, acquired the mine's owner and has since leased the space to the government, solidifying its role as a tenant in this facility.
So the government never owned the mine. They didn't buy it.
And they had an opportunity to buy it. And instead it was bought not just by a shady company. Like, why didn't they buy the mine? Mines don't have many other uses.
Yeah, who else is going to use a retired limestone mine?
It should have been scrap, basically, in terms of buying it. They should have been able to say, well, if you don't want this mine, we'll go to another mine.
That's why the world is full of abandoned mines.
Exactly. So why did another company come along and buy it and now has a leasing agreement with the United States? That makes no sense. Another thing that makes no sense is usually these types of contractors that come in and do deals like this, you can get an advantage if you're owned by a, minority.
Veteran-owned, women-owned, especially let's say you were a female disabled veteran Native American who is also half Black. I think that would be amazing.
You should have gotten you get like a 20% or like 30%. What they do is
depending on the state or entity or a branch of the federal government, basically, depending on your status, they have to basically discount your fee by a certain percentage. So it may be that company A, which has none of these special statuses, charges you $100, and company B, which has special status, charges you $150, but they're both seen as costing $100 because you have to discount a bunch from vendor B.
Yes. So what was odd about this deal is that this company was formed just to do this and was a publicly traded company back when senators and congressmen didn't need to disclose where they were investing their money.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Publicly traded. Okay.
During a time when they didn't need to make these disclosures, which was 1998. Almost what very obviously happened here is a number of politicians got together, created this company, and then were using it as an annuity. And that's why everything is still in a mine.
Oh my God.
We'll get into this a bit more because there have been efforts to end this annuity to these congresspeople, and they've been scuttled, which is horrifying. considering we've lost hundreds of millions of dollars of US taxpayers in trying to end this process. And this is why we need Doge. Like literally, you cannot trust the deep state to act against the interests of their masters.
Especially with this being a known problem since at least 2015 when you cited that article. I mean, that you would think that article should have caused some public uproar, some questions to be asked, some congressmen to be emailed or phoned.
And we also know it's not even like a safe location. The ceiling is apparently about to cave in. Like this is like,
it's not like anyone was going to go check that anyway. If anyone's going to go back and check these documents.
Oh, well, here's what you might be surprised about. The iron mine facility, located 220 feet underground, why does it need to be so deep? It's just federal employment documents, employs over 700 workers who manually process the 10,000 retirement applications each month. The process involves federal employees submitting applications on paper, either by mail or hand delivered to OPM. These files are transported to the mine where the staff review them for completeness, perform calculations, and verify benefits. And you know they're sending back 90% of these the first time they're sent in, for anyone who's ever tried to apply for anything with the federal government.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
If errors or missing information are found, documents are sent back to agencies for corrections, further delaying the process. The mine's infrastructure is likened to a small underground city, featuring its own fire brigade, security, streets with a 10-mile-per-hour speed limit, traffic lights.
Oh my gosh, I'm picturing that little car in Austin Powers.
Hang on, I'm gonna floor it! Watch out! Move! Move! Move!
Careful, Austin.
It literally is supervillain. Yes,
this is very Austin Powers.
Austin
I
Powers.
hope they have little uniforms.
And addresses for its thousands of tenants who apparently live in the mine.
Wait,
this
what?
setup, described in a 2014 Washington Post, reported it as one of the weirdest workplaces in the US government, involves employees passing files by hand from desk to desk and cavern to cavern, a method unchanged since the 1970s. The report, titled Data Mining the Old-Fashioned Way,
oh boy,
of 28,000 file cabinets, and the slow manual workflow highlights the delays exacerbated by occasional elevator breakdowns.
Oh God, this is painful.
It actually is painful.
Yeah, I'm in pain.
Despite technological advancements, the systems remained manual, with multiple attempts to digitize it since the 1980s, failing, costing over $100 million. A 2023 Inspector General report noted small steps towards digitization, such as testing an online retirement application pilot in 2024, but a full modernization remains years away. Why? It would be easy to do. Reasons for these failures include the complexity of the systems, technical issues, and insufficient funding. $100 million.
Because no one else has figured out how to give retirement packages to their employees.
Yeah, if you gave, like us, our nonprofit, DEIremediation.com, $1 million, I guarantee you we could fix this. Fully automated, no problem. As reported in various sources, including a 2015 Government Accountability Office assessment, GAO. And then I asked it about the $100 million. I was like, who did this money go to? How did you fail to digitize with $100 million?
Yeah.
The $100 million for modernization efforts was likely paid to consulting companies like Hewlett Associates and Accenture, who were contracted to digitize the federal retirement system. The process aimed at updating paper-based retirement processing faced challenges and was canceled in 2011 after significant investment. So that's impossible. It is genuinely impossible that this couldn't be done for $100 million, even at the most incompetent of firms.
Again,
and
this is so Austin Powers. $100 million. Yeah, it was stolen. It was stolen. All of this is just a crazy Austin Powers plan. That like Dr. Evil decided he was going to steal $100 million from the government and didn't even have to build an evil mine because there already was one. And all he had to do was charge another underground layer this much money to do something it was never going to do. How? And this isn't even the most expensive thing that Doge has revealed, of course. Like, they've just already found so much more. But
Doge isn't even that focused on this. They're like, yeah, we need to fix this, but it's like a side note for them. By the way, need to give a shout out. My little brother works at Doge, and it's run by famous pronatalist Elon. I gotta say, good job, Elon. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Batman.
But it hurts me that we can live in a country and know that this grift is happening, and know that the taxpayers are being robbed, Social Security is being robbed, Medicare and Medicaid is being robbed.
Yeah, I was just listening to an interview with Elon Musk in which he was talking about these call centers for the Social Security office, that 40% of the calls are fraudulent, and that these are people who are trying to change where the Social Security checks are sent, so they get sent to these fraudsters instead of the real recipients. And just that alone, like that amount of wastage, the fact that those call centers are there anyway, that there should be a better process for verifying this, and these people are being tricked. There's so much that's really,
when he was going through the Social Security rolls, and there was so much obvious fraud that wasn't
120-year-old people.
No. There were people who were over 200, like 250 years old, I think was one of them. There was a few 200. There was more than one over 200 years old. And there was like a dozen, I want to say, over 150. These are things that anyone could have easily checked if they had cared.
Or a simple system that's like, hey, if this person's over 100, let's just check on them. Just check. Make sure they're okay.
Yeah. When people fight the shutdown of Doge, this is what they're fighting for. And so you need to ask, either are they just reflexively against anything that the Republicans are doing, which some of them are. Some of them are just like, they can't see, and they're firebombing, they're threatening people's lives over this. You see this with the Tesla firebombs. You see this with and I love when people are like, oh, you had no problem when like Republicans were boycotting and shooting like bottles of like Coors Light, Bud Light, right? Sorry, Coors Light, Bud Light. Why is it so bad when we torch somebody else's Tesla? And I'm like, wait, how do you struggle to see that these two things aren't comparable? That buying Coors Light and shooting it in your backyard is not the same as lighting an explosive car. Sorry, Bud Light. Lighting an explosive car on fire in public that you don't own. And cars are expensive. Like these, if this is somebody's primary means of transportation, they might not.
I don't know if acts of terrorism are covered in car insurance. So that's
I don't think they are. Like this is huge hit to somebody's net worth, especially given that these are Teslas that you're getting.
Man.
And these
are probably people who bought them, when they were before Elon Musk became politicized. So they're probably left-leaning, environmentally minded people who want to save the planet. And now,
if it's a Cybertruck, that's not the case. And I think that's what they've been targeting is Cybertrucks. So, but even that being the case, these two things are not correlated at all. If the right was like burning down liquor stores that served Bud Light, the left would be saying that these people should be tried as terrorists because these people would be terrorists. That's the definition of terrorism. I love that the left has been like freaking out, like, how can the right call these people terrorists? What are they doing? The right has never done anything remotely equivalent to this. This is a completely new phenomenon being done to support the grift, right? And so the question is, one, it's deranged people who just like lack the ability to think critically and are just acting on essentially orders from their masters at leftist media. And that's really dangerous because, the individuals, and Elon pointed this out, I thought it was really powerful because it's really sad that the people who are going to end up punished for this are like poor people with like mental health issues. And it's not the people who understand the grift. This is the reporters. This is the media. This is the people like the Young Turks. This is the people like Hassan. This is, they know in the back of their heads that all this stuff, AOC, all of this stuff is a lie, that we're not actually living under a fascist dictatorship, that Elon really is just trying to lower the amount of waste so that more of the US dollar can go to people who really need it. The modern
Yeah, that's exactly what he was saying
right
about social security. If we fix
Yeah.
this, there will be more social security for people.
Yeah. And the modern right is not for reducing benefits. Like, they haven't pushed that at all.
Mhm.
They have pushed reducing waste. And so when you think about waste, the question is, well, then who is the waste going to? Because it's not going nowhere.
Right.
Someone's benefiting from this. And I think that that's where the anger is coming from. That's where the anger for US aid is coming from. That's where the anger around this is coming from. But do you have any thoughts on the terrorism claims around like the Tesla stuff and everything like that?
I mean, it makes sense. It's politically motivated domestic terror. I don't know what else to say. It would definitely be done the same way if it were done with the right attacking some business associated with the left. So it's bad. It's bad. Don't do it, people.
Then I'd get to a second thing, which is the risk of assassination. So the JFK files, sorry, not the risk, the risks for more assassination attempts. The JFK files have started to be released by Donald Trump.
Right. And there are so many, right? It's taking people eons to get through them.
Well, and only a third have been released so far.
Gosh.
By the way, one of the things that was said when they were released is it was requested the only thing that be censored is Israel and Israeli security. So that could be benign. It could be quite severe because they were trying to achieve nuclear armament at the time, and they saw that as critical to their country's survival. And JFK was against that. And so, and they eventually achieved it. So, I can see them having some vested interest. And who's to say that it wasn't critical to their country's survival? I can see why, if I was an Israeli, I would think that at that time period and potentially even today.
Right.
But I don't think they'd assassinate a president over that because there's no assurance that the next president is going to be on their side or that it wouldn't blow up and cause, it's just not worth the risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I would maybe say, I don't think that that's what was going on there. I think that maybe they knew something. But the bigger issue is it appears that John F. Kennedy had believed, and a report was sent to him, a report that wasn't known about before, saying that the CIA had a breakaway sub-faction was in it that had its own basically secret president that was just making decisions completely separate from US political will.
Okay.
More specifically, Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr., a special assistant to President JFK Jr., wrote a critical memo to JFK on June 10, 1961. Schlesinger's report highlighted the CIA's autonomy, noting that 47% of political officers in U.S. embassies were CIA agents undercover, often operating without informing the State Department or embassies. He criticized the agency's clandestine operations, such as recruiting agents in friendly countries like Singapore, Japan, and Pakistan, which risked diplomatic embarrassment. And if you're that could, obviously that could happen. If you're an organization,
the justification for that?
No justification. Just, they're trying to promote American interests around the world, right? And so they think that, the public can't know about what we're doing. Government employees can't know about what we're doing often. Other government employees can't know about what we're doing. And we're getting money for this. Why would a person in a position of that with no serious oversight, because if other people can't know about what you're doing, you have no oversight, can't determine their own will. And if that person has political ideology, right? And at the time, these organizations were very Republican, which runs at odds with a new president like JFK, they might just decide to ignore what the new president would want them to do in terms of foreign policy because they think it's in the best interest of the nation, and they're all unelected officials.
Wow.
And I point out here, when people talk about Elon being an unelected official, it's yeah, except Donald Trump, when he was running, mentioned he was going to do Doge a lot.
Yeah, that was very, very transparent.
Elon run it.
Yeah, and the government has always been full of unelected officials that we don't know about, we were never informed about, we didn't get to think about them as potentially being involved during the election, all these things. Yeah.
So anyway, somebody had reached out to JFK about this. He'd not reached out, he'd done a report. He paid some guy to do a report, and the report was yeah, this is going on.
Okay.
This is real. And then JFK apparently was going to do a major restructuring of these organizations and
Oh,
cut back within these organizations.
oh no, I see where you're going here.
And Trump was running on doing the same thing. And if you look at how the assassination of JFK happened in an unprotected environment, he was doing this motorcade, was out the top on, and
Old
he
Butlerian
was
there.
right. And they didn't check potentially obvious places like the book depository where they could have been shot from. And
Oh
we
my
apparently
gosh.
know,
Oh my gosh,
weirdly,
what?
both Lee Harvey Oswald and the guy who assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald, but I think specifically
They
Lee Harvey
did.
Oswald,
Yeah.
supposedly like a nobody, right? He had, it was either a CIA or FBI contingent watching him, like monitoring him and his family before the attempt. So it wasn't like they didn't know that he was a risk. It was more like, oh, we know this person is a risk. And potentially his former commander in the military said that he left to join the CIA. Now, later, that guy, I think he ended up dying or something. And then there was a famous guy he was like a counter spy guy, I'll add him in post, who also said that there was a breakaway anti-US faction within the CIA or FBI, the deep state basically, that had motivation for this assassination. The guy I am thinking of is George de Morenschit, a Russian immigrant with ties to the oil industry and intelligence community, befriended Oswald in Dallas in 1962 to 1963 after Oswald's return from the Soviet Union. Declassified JFK files confirm he was a CIA asset, debriefed by the agency about Oswald, and had contacts with CIA officials, including George Jonas. In his memoir, I Am a Patsy, written before his death, suggests Oswald was manipulated by intelligence services, aligning with the idea of a breakaway faction. In 1976, he wrote a letter to CIA Director George H.W. Bush, pleading for protection from harassment by unspecified forces, implying agency overreach. His memoirs and interviews suggest Oswald was a scapegoat in a larger plot potentially involving rogue CIA agents. De Morenschit died in March 29, 1977, in Minneapolis, Florida, from a gunshot wound to the head, officially ruled a suicide. However, his death occurred shortly before he was scheduled to testify before the House Select Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, about his ties to Oswald, fueling speculation of foul play. The timing, combined with his claims of being harassed, has led many to view his death as suspicious. In another instance, Gary Underhill, a former military intelligence officer and CIA consultant, reportedly told friends in 1964 that a, quote, small clique within the CIA was responsible for JFK's assassination, end quote. He died just a few months later in May 8, 1964, from a gunshot wound to the head. Officially ruled a suicide, but the circumstances were suspicious. And then we also have E. Howard Hunt, a CIA officer involved in covert operations. Hunt confessed on his deathbed in 2007 to hearing of a CIA conspiracy to kill JFK. And it happened very similar to the Trump attempted assassinations, where if you look at the Trump assassination, particularly the one where the kid was on a roof, like that roof was the only raised position anywhere near this location.
Yeah.
There is no reason that shouldn't have been covered.
Yeah.
They said they had nobody covering it because it was sloped and it was in between the local police and the Secret Service.
Not
What?
buying it.
That makes no sense. I don't buy that. It's literally the only location. Literally the only location you should have had somebody trained. And they apparently had multiple counter snipers, and the crowd saw the guy get into position and not them.
Attempted to warn them multiple times.
And what was going to happen when Trump was all these people would lose their jobs? That he would go against their new agenda, the deep state's agenda. Like, the deep state isn't new. The deep state has been around for a long time. And now and in the 90s, one thing we often mention is that the Republicans, if you're talking the 80s, 90s, especially back in the JFK times, the urban monoculture didn't have control of this country. It was a Judeo-Christian coalition that had control of this country and attempted to impose their values on other people. And people interested in imposing the values on the dominant culture on the population, they controlled a lot of our agencies and everything like that. And the government and the Republican Party at the time stood for that. If you look today, the Republican Party stands against that, with the Democrats representing the dominant cultural group, the urban monoculture, which attempts to impose its values on Christians and Jews and other conservative factions like ourselves. And it would only make sense that they now control these types of organizations like the NSA. You can watch our episode on the trans cult that was found inside the NSA. Like, of course they have control of these organizations. And the only way to fix this is to clean them out. But we should expect, you know, likely they have already tried to get Trump assassinated. I 100%, like, I think it's implausible if you look at the layout of the location where that assassination attempt happened, that given that they had like 20 security at that location, that nobody was looking at the only raised position. And the kid didn't like quickly come out there. He was like slow about this.
This is so dark. Oh my gosh.
This is dark. But we're seeing that this has happened before, and we're seeing that it happened again. Fighting bureaucracy and fighting corruption means that you're fighting people's income source that they are using to get where, you know, whether it's AOC or Nancy Pelosi or the woman who is head of the Secret Service why was a woman head of the Secret Service when almost no women are in the Secret Service? That makes no sense. Like, obviously she wasn't the most qualified candidate.
Yeah, I'm wondering how these things get executed. Presumably only a couple people know.
Mm-hmm.
And like Trump has said again and again, like, my Secret Service is amazing. I'm really grateful for them.
This is the way I assume it happened, by the way, to prevent, like, because I don't think a lot of people would have known about this. I think the woman who was head of the Secret Service at the time, I think the way they explained the failure was accurate. She created a super tight zone of control that was the Secret Services, and then a separate zone of control that was the local police, and ensured there was a gap between these two zones of control that included the only raised space from which somebody could attempt to assassinate the president.
Oh, so you think she was complicit?
I think that it was her and whoever was working with her. I don't think it was the Secret Service officers on the field. I think that because you wouldn't create zones of control like that. Like, that's insane. Why was there a gap between the two zones of control?
Yeah.
That included
also, like, if you were a
raised
Secret
space.
Service officer, you'd probably, I mean, just because your life is on the line, if the president gets shot at, you probably aren't going to be complicit in the things that have the president.
Well, I mean, not really. There's the famous photo of the Secret Service officer diving like behind the president or whatever, or hiding behind the president. Yeah, there's some fat woman who was a Secret Service officer. They're the famous picture of her like cowering behind the president.
No.
Yeah. So this is who we're hiring these days. I hope the president, you know, does a cleanup of the organization. And I assume he has. You know, his life's on the line. I hope that they protect a contingent to protect Elon, because, you know, when Elon gets to the CIA,
I think
FBI,
Elon has
they're
good
going after
private
him.
security. I don't think after everything he has experienced when working with the government, you think he's going to use government security? Because I don't think he's going to use government security if he wants to live. No.
True that.
And he's had private security, I'm sure, for like all of his life. So, well, not all of his, but all of his, you know, fancy person life. So yeah, I'm sure he's just sticking with that.
He's talked about being afraid of it fairly frequently.
Afraid for his life?
Yeah, like,
well, he should be, obviously, but I don't think he's using government security, or else he wouldn't be talking, because he would be dead.
True. I think what we're probably going to see is, and I do worry for my brother over this, somebody on Doge is going to be assassinated. I could totally see that.
I hope they have security.
One of the things, and also it's not just that, if he fails at this, he's going to end up in jail. One of the things that was said to me is they're like, this is the game, and if you fail at it, you lose. The last person who had Elon's basically job was Steve Bannon. He failed to get anything meaningful done, and he ended up in jail as a result of his failure. Because
look, Doge has already got a ton done. So, I mean, how do you define fail? If failing is just Democrats win in the next major election, that's not.
You need to clean out the deep state, all of the rot. If you don't get the rot out, then you are personally at risk. Because they will use. Look at what happened to Le Pen, right? Did you see the?
Oh my gosh! Yes. Oh my gosh.
And I saw on Reddit they were like cheering for this. They were like, it showed the USA like not understanding how things are done, and then France being like, "This is how you get right-leaning politicians in jail." Like, And that's the way they see things. They think that they should have the right, as we saw with the AfD in Germany, where with the episode where we talked about Germany, the majority of Germans voted for parties that wanted to reduce immigration, either the AfD or conservatives. And yet Germany is forming a coalition that doesn't want that because they will not work with the AfD. Despite this supposedly far-right party being run by a lesbian in an interracial relationship who lives in Switzerland.
Not enough.
Yes. She's such a far-right nationalist.
Yeah, that's far right. It's classic far right stuff.
Elon Musk, obsessed with global warming, founds multiple companies to deal with it. Lifelong Democrat. Classic far-right Nazi.
Those really used to work. This is bad. That's
bad.
That's really scary, though.
But if we can disrupt this, if we can, and people are freaking out. What do you think about the Trump third term talk?
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, but he's gonna be so old then. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I prefer a JD Vance, but we'll see. I mean, look, if what we would have is we'd have the only reason I would prefer Trump run the next cycle is it's going to be pretty hard to win the next cycle if Trump runs, or if a Republican runs more broadly. I mean, I think we're just in an environment where it's going to be hard to win. And so if he wins, then that puts the loss on him rather than JD Vance, and allows JD Vance to run in a cycle where he's likely to win. And I think if you've looked at like the tech right being efficient at getting stuff done, imagine when the tech right is run by the tech right.
Pretty dreamy. Yeah.
Pretty dreamy. Yeah, no, I think JD Vance, like I am so looking forward to President JD Vance. I like President Trump. I like MAGA. I love President JD Vance. It's sad we can't have a President Elon because he's born in Africa, but maybe that law gets changed. Like in what movie is that? Demolition Man, where they change it so Arnold Schwarzenegger can become president. That did predict Arnold Schwarzenegger becoming a politician, though, governor of California. Nobody, everybody was. I think that's why they voted on him, to be like, we got to make the prediction in that movie come true. But that movie, by the way, Demolition Man, if you haven't seen it, you should. It's actually a really solid movie, and it's a movie about, at the time, what they called PC culture, what today we would call woke culture, taking over the world, and what that world run by ultra woke culture would look like, where you're not allowed to say things or think things or do things, and it's all run by a few oligarchs. Then everything has to be ultra PC. You can't even curse in public. And I think that, don't you know what the 3 clamshells do? This guy hasn't seen this 3 clamshell. It's got great memes. That could never be made by Hollywood today. Yeah, no, the counterculture can't win.
Probably not. Yeah.
Anything not good for you is bad, hence illegal. Caffeine, contact sports, meat, chocolate, gasoline, uneducational toys, and anything spicy. Abortion is also illegal, but then again, so is pregnancy if you don't have a license.
Well, RAI video game, it's going to go hard into the stuff you're not allowed to talk about or do in entertainment, and it's going to be good. If you look at our school recently, have you seen the Collins Institute recently, Simone? Like, it's so good now.
I played with it today. It blew my mind. I was so excited.
It's like a Bureaucratic AI tutor. Oh, it's amazing.
It taught me more about cephalopods, which was exciting. Do you know the 3 types of cephalopods?
Okay, I'm going to say squids, cuttlefish, and octopus, but nautilus would need to be one of them. Okay, octopus and squids are in the same category. So octopus, squids, one category, then cuttlefish, then nautilus.
No, it just didn't give me cuttlefish is separate. It had octopus and squid and nautilus. So maybe cuttlefish are categorized as like
what's the third
Octopedia, nautilus, squid, octopi. But they have fancy more Latin sounding names.
The cuttlefish is in the octopus category or in the squid category, maybe?
I might put it in the nautilus category based on how they look. I don't know. But I mean, maybe there are more categories, and the 3 major ones are those. But yeah, I'm learning about them. Cephalopods.
We'll see. I love you to death. It's a fun website to play around on, to learn on if you want. It no longer locks you into specific tracks. It's really focused around the AI tutor now. It's quite impressive, I think.
Yeah, just search any subject you want to learn about and have an AI tutor talk you through it, or have a Socratic tutor engage you over it. It's so cool.
It's all free too. So, again, we put our money where our mouth is. We pay for this stuff so that you guys can become more educated for free. Love you to death, Simone.
I love you too, Malcolm.
And tonight we're doing red Thai curry.
red Thai curry. I'm just about to go down and put in the bell peppers as a final bit because you don't want to overcook those. You want them to be a little crunchy, right? And I guess you're going to have it with lime rice, or do you want it with naan or something else?
No, hash brown.
Okay. Hash browns take like 45
Oh,
minutes.
they take longer? Okay, ignore the hash brown. Lime rice.
Okay. Well, if I can get her.
No, lime rice. I want it with lime rice. Today you've made the new curry batch, and so that's like a big amount of work. And we're doing, you're going to be doing the family call. Got to catch up with family. Let them know that we've been in the New York Times, on the BBC, in Mother Jones, in Wired, in the major Italian outlets, having another documentary team come to our house. Come on, we're hitting it out of the park.
Two more documentary teams.
We got it. Oh, we got to keep it. Wait, what's the other one? We got the Italian one, and then
Gregorio, and then Story Syndicate.
When are they coming?
Story Syndicate. Gregorio is this Friday and Saturday.
Well, it's quite a ways away. Anyway, love you to death, Simone.
I love you too, gorgeous.
What?
Oh, wow.
What the heck is going on here?
What have you been doing in your bed?
I was.
Do you want my help opening this? You gotta open the bow. So let's open the bow first, right? So we gotta like pull them.
I just got some.
You were just collecting cars?
Yeah.
And you were just collecting rocks too?
Yeah.
Well, what's that?
It's that.
Oh, a bag?
Wait, nothing's inside. But look, what's this? I need to open this, but how?
Do you want my help?
Don't worry, I got this. It's so stuck. So I do.
There, it should be easier now.
What is a box? Let's open it. I need help opening this box.
What's on the box?
What do you see on the box?
Whoa, what is this? What is this?
Well, first, it's a...
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, let's see what the rest of this is.
Another hat?
No,
It's
not
a
hat.
pocket vest.
Oh, it's got so many pockets for rocks and cars.
What?
Do you want to put it on?
Yeah.
Wow, you're going to be putting things in your pockets all night long.
Yeah, because this got so many pockets.
Wow.